And all right, Mil-Spec Ops Monkey here. I've got the legendary Scott McKay with me from Tipping Point Revolution Radio. He's going to be joining me now each week. And along with Hotel 3, Hotel 3 has got a family engagement tonight, so he is going to be out, but he'll be back with us in our next show. We will not be meeting next week because that's going to be Christmas Eve, and probably skip that and head into the following week, so which I think is going to be quite eventful. So with that said, Scott, how you doing, brother? Yeah. Yeah, for sure. So, man, let's we could delve right into it. I have been watching some of the activity around DC, and I saw again. It looked like another exercise where I saw several of the executive aircraft bug out, go south to a marshaling point, and then return back to base. So, it's kind of I don't know why they're doing that. I mean I know why they're doing it, but it's it kind of gets everybody in a oh, what's going on situation. So it's been interesting to watch that because they typically um I saw a lot of people post today something about how the was it Air Force One that was up, and it's what it is. It's a decoy bird. There's several Air Force One aircraft, right? And so when you see one go up and it doesn't say Air Force One, it's because POTUS isn't on that one. Okay, so A lot of people don't know that. But if it says AF2, then Pence is on board. So that's the only time they're allowed to really put those on. Now, I will tell you that the latest thing that I saw today. So one of the things people have to realize too is Air Force Two or Air Force One, when it is flying, is that it will be if POTUS doesn't want to be seen, he will not be seen. He'll be, they just won't transpond, or they'll transpond to something else. So that's just something we have to all keep in mind. So when you see that, it's, we're not going to, if it's a dire need or national security, we won't be able to see his aircraft. So, all right. So I got word that I had, you were muted somehow. So I just unmuted you. So evidently my mic test during all of our intro music was not successful. So,
hey, I think I actually got a couple texts too. So glad you saw it on your end. Can you hear me now? Adam, can you hear me now? See if it comes back.
You should be good.
Yeah.
All right. I see it. We got about a 4-second delay. So you should be popping through there though. I've got everything unlocked on my side, and I think you're good, brother. All right. Okay, good. It's 5-5. Yep, I'm seeing it across. So it's funny because my better half actually came in here and held up a sign. I had to look over at it real fast because I try not to look at the chat because there's just so much going through there right now. You've got some like 6,000 people chatting, and so it's kind of crazy to watch that feed just bounce up and down. So
it's a distraction for me. Sometimes I look over there and hey, there's a couple bones. I want to go sink my teeth into one of those, and then I throw my whole narrative off. So I get that.
Yep, absolutely. So, all right. So anyway, so what are you hearing? Are you hearing any chatter out of your DC guys or anything along those lines? I had mentioned to you earlier that there was going to be some lockdown activity. We've been talking about that in the last show, and I've been kind of sharing that with folks through every feed that I can. My understanding is everything's kosher till after the new year. So, but I am hearing a lot of people are bugging out of DC, and I've kind of been seeing that through several drops. So,
yeah, I actually, since we talked about that this morning, I woke up and saw a couple messages come through on my cell, and some of this activity, and you and I talked about. It might have been you or somebody else told me that most of all the White House staff were put in a hotel down in Florida, secured hotel. I don't know. As I said to my folks here in the live stream earlier, I don't know if all that's true. I don't know what's true, what's not, because then I talked to another good friend of mine, and she's connected with some people as well, and she said that a person she knows was invited to a big White House Christmas party for tomorrow night. That being said, that means that they're not bugging out of the White House. So the way I explain this to people is this. First of all, the alliance powers are never going to telegraph their moves. And we also know that disinformation is absolutely critical and necessary because they're not just talking to us. They're talking to the bad guys, and they need to send the bad guys down some rabbit holes that turn out to be snake holes of their own, and try to keep try to keep them off balance. So I tell people, look, don't sink unless you and I are talking to some real high level intel says, look, right now, this is what you have to know and do. Other than that, I think just letting people know what's out there, and I get information you probably do all the time. I'm probably the guy that'll put out most anything if it seems like it could be plausible, just to let people either go do their own due diligence, make up their own mind. But I look at it this way. I would rather say, hey, here's what I'm hearing. I can't validate it. If I can, I'll tell you when I can. But you just need to know this is a possibility. And if it is, you can at least take some measures in case you need to be prepared to bunker down, be prepared to watch TV for a week, or whatever. Make sure you got food on hand, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, for sure. I think these are the messages that we had seen go out this week. One was from Code Monkey Z, and he talks about there was I guess telling people to be prepared for an imminent emergency notification from the White House. So that, we still got Friday, so there's possible something could come out of that. But and then the other piece was There was this lady that posted something this morning, and I got this several times, but it said this is where you and I were talking about that POTUS has ordered most of his White House staff to leave the D.C. area and clear out. So now I like there's some of that you have to take with a pinch of salt because it's Christmas and most people are bugging out, out of DC unless you actually live there. And, most of those people live on the outer sides. Nobody really lives inside of DC except for, a handful of folks, I guess, but it's just too expensive. so,
Yeah.
so, pinch of salt, but it's a data point, right? And so when you start to hear lots of little things and we see some of the activity we see with the Air Force planes, like Air Force 1 and 2 and all the Venus aircraft doing their little stuff, then it's just stuff we got to take in, try to process it through. It doesn't mean that the other shoe's about to drop all the time, but anyway. So what do you think about this bar situation?
I'll tell you, I kind of have a different opinion on Barr than most people. And quite honestly, it comes from, where it comes from for me with all this stuff is I don't look for the obvious. I look for the inobvious because that's really where the battle is being fought. And when you look at what had gone on with with Barr in the last couple of years, and I covered this on the radio show Monday night. When you're talking about Barr, okay, everybody says, okay, because he hasn't done this, this, and this, he's a bad guy. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about the bad guy here for a second, because it was the bad guy who did name Durham as a special counsel, independent prosecutor, special counsel. So you say, why would he do that? I mean, if they've done all this other stuff prior to, well, because if, let's just say, now again, nobody can convince me it's going to happen that Biden's going to be inaugurated. I think that's an absurd proposition. But let's just say that if that actually happened, well, the reason you have an independent counsel that has now been named because a new president's not going to come in and get rid of the independent counsel who's investigating the shenanigans that he's involved in or his players are. If it's a DOJ U.S. attorney, guess what? When somebody comes in, they can fire all U.S. attorneys in the country. That's exactly what Clinton did. He came in and fired every U.S. attorney. This is his first decision: get rid of all U.S. attorneys, stack the DOJ with my guys. So now, when you have a special prosecutor, that ain't going to happen. That might have just been a fail-safe. Okay, so that's the movie made. Second thing, we've got Flynn, who dropped we got Flynn here, and we had Barr's DOJ did what? One of the most important moves for exposing the cabal to the world, and that's dropping the charges on Flynn. And what did that do? That exposed one, a district court judge, federal judge, who I thought actually was a good guy for the last 20 years, and that's Emmett G. Sullivan. What did we find out there? We smoke out this guy, and that only happened to show people again, you're not going to find justice in the justice system. It doesn't work that way. It's not the way it's been built. So he did that. Now, what's the next thing that he did? He fired Berman, who's the Southern District, New York, U.S. attorney. What happened when Berman was fired? Within a week, they go pick up Ghislaine Maxwell and charge her. They've known where she's been forever. Yeah. So you can go through this whole thing with him. In fact, it's also Barr's DOJ that sued Alphabet Inc., which is the parent company of Google. So if he's such a bad guy, why did he make these critical moves that were necessary for this entire operation to move forward? Now, I'm not saying I know, I'm just saying pose the question, okay? When you have 2,000 former DOJ prosecutors who all sign on to a letter that are now calling for Barr's resignation, probably once he pardoned Flynn, dropped the charges on Flynn, you have to say to yourself, wow, he must be definitely an enemy of our enemy. So there again, you got to get under the hood, and you got to climb down in this engine to really see what's going on. It could be a number of things, because you can see how Trump has most effectively used what you call temps in these positions of power where they are acting DOD. Look at Chris Myers. I think he's just a total stud at DOJ. He's acting DOD head of the DOD now. defense secretary, because when they're acting, they don't have to go through the Senate onslaught, the confirmations hearing, just get bogged down all this nonsense and take the narrative away from what's happening here. So Barr may have just stepped out of the way, and you have Rosen step up, and I learned about Rosen. Okay, maybe Barr is not quite suited for what comes next, because quite frankly, when you look at who Rosen is, Rosen is definitely a guy that, well, I didn't know this for sure until my friend Ken reached out to me earlier today. I said, go bird dog this and get under the hood from what I know. And he says, yeah. I said, hey, he says Rosen, who's new acting AG, now that Barr is going to be out of there, he's already made it public that he's concerned with the foreign influence of the election. Even more so, the deputy AG is Richard Donahue. Now, this guy is a judge advocate general corps. You're talking U.S. Army, ex-military, magistrate, judge, prosecutor, defense counsel, contract litigator. This guy served in the 82nd Airborne. Who's now in a better position to carry the ball forward to start bringing some pain through the DOJ? And if it's not through DOJ, then it's the Defense Department. Because I've said from day one, if people can understand that this is not a judicial operation to bring this power structure down. It's never coming down through the justice system. Otherwise, it would have been done. It's coming down because the only institution that is not corrupt, or at least completely corrupt, there are some deep state generals in there. We know that Obama got rid of 275 of the top brass and stacked the ones in there who are willing to point their guns toward U.S. citizens. But as outside of those people who they've been clearing out, this is a military takedown, not a judicial one. So regardless of where Barr falls, good guy, bad guy, to me, it continues to remain to be irrelevant, because, again, military is the only way that we are going to gut this swamp from the ground up. It's never going to be gutted, and it doesn't have to be drained. It needs absolutely gutted, because these people are infiltrated everywhere on every level. And that's why I talk about Nasara. I think, Nasara, good or real or not, I truly believe it is, that's the only way, is to disband Washington power structure. Get out. You're not coming back. Get out of town. Go do whatever if you're not going to jail. And we're going to bring in real American constitutional patriots. Yeah. So that's the long ball for me when it comes to Barr.
That makes sense. Here, the other thing too is that, when you look at the new that latest EO that POTUS just put out that has to do with the chain of command for the DoD, it kind of falls in line with what you're saying in terms of military is the only way, but it also shows the range and depth within. There's no fuzz if you look at if the chain of command in terms of if there's a some type of an emergency, or if Secretary of Defense is killed or injured and out of can't act in that capacity. It goes down through. There's probably 40 or 50 people that are named in terms of positions. So, you talk about ironclad. There's no. I mean, you'd have to get them all on a bus in order to wipe out that list and put somebody outside of his. I don't know. It just seems like it falls in line with what you're saying in terms of and also the latest, about 6 days ago, we saw how there was a huge. Match, like just a battle between special forces and the CIA. How special forces are now saying, that new chain of command that just got stood up. Hey, we're no longer helping the CIA do their work. So, I think you're definitely onto something there, man. Without a doubt.
That's exciting stuff. I mean, just what you mentioned there. I mean, the DoD has told the clowns in America, we're no longer basically going to be running wet works for you operations, because they know what they are. We know what they are. And look, I got a very close friend of mine from the time I was young and a college roommate. He's been with he's one of the good guys, the rank and file, as agents, or good hardworking patriots. But I thought when you look at, have a slight shuffle at DOJ, obviously, And I think that could be tactical. Now I heard Barr and Trump got into a screaming match. True, I don't know. The thing that people don't understand about DC, it is a rat infested sewer.
Hmm.
Everybody stabs each other in the back. It's just part of the game. You go watch House of Cards, man. House of Cards is like watching Sesame Street compared to what it's really like, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But when you look at those DoD moves, and I saw this announcement when you probably saw it when Chris Myers, who, most people, you look at Chris Myers, he looks like some kind of geek. This he's a badass special operator. He ran Special Operations Command in, I believe, in Iraq, and now he's acting secretary. Well, this guy has now killed the chain of command through the bureaucracy at DoD with special operators. And I watched him making that speech, and he looked at the special operators there. He said, "Look," he said, "I have your back," and he said, "I know you have mine too." Because the swamp exists inside the DoD for sure, but he cut out all the roadblocks in the bureaucracy of DoD and said, "You guys are answering directly to me, right face to face."
Nice.
And if something happens to him, then it's Ezra Cohen Watnick. And these guys are, I mean, they're playing for keeps. So when I
Yeah.
see those major moves, it's DoD driven to me.
Yeah, without a doubt. When you start talking about spec op guys, man, that's a different level of brotherhood right there. Those guys will definitely take a bullet for each other and not blink. Whereas you get into the other side of politics, if you've ever worked for a large corporation, it all mirrors and mimics the politics of DC. It's cutthroat. It's the old dogs, and you know it's a smaller organization of our government. That's all it is. It's brutal. So it's why I'm no
You know,
longer in there, man.
I was going to ask you that. That's probably why, guy with your talent and your career path and everything you did, because it fascinates us. Oh, by the way, I'm going to get back to that point I wanted to make about that. But
Yeah.
I talked about Gene Decode to you, Gene Kasensei. He's the one that talks about all the deep underground military bases. He's a big name. He actually talked about you twice today when I was listening to one of his shows. So he's supposed to come on my show. And we got to link up with him, get him on here. He really
Yeah.
loves your work, by the way. He really loves it. And he knows he's 20 years submarines. He's got inside intel on all the deep underground military bases and all the ones that have been taken down. And we'll talk about that in a second. But imagine this, imagine a world, as I tell people the way, and I've seen this in business, startup companies my whole life. There's always, when you're collaborating with potential partners, there's always that back door, back channel thinking going on, like, how am I going to position myself to have a stronger, bigger, whatever.
Yeah.
And it's what I've hated about the business world is, I've always said, for me, when I'm doing any type of startup deal with somebody, it's like, look, if your handshake's no good, your signature means absolutely nothing to me
Right.
because it's just the way it is. But and it goes on forever. Now, even in politics and the corporate world, imagine once we get beyond this, right? We get beyond this, and all this whole dynamic was created because the matrix that the cabal built is one of scarcity, right? They made this planet that's massively abundant, a planet of abject scarcity. And I've said this, I think, probably on another show. Look, our creator, God's not going to put us on this unbelievably rich, abundant, sentient being that we call Earth that can produce, a symbiotic relationship to enrich everything on the planet. But no, we got a creator that says, I'm going to put it on this abundant, sentient being we call Earth, and I'm going to throw a bunch of my kids on there, and there's only enough for like half of them, and it's going to let them duke it out in the octagon. Like, even from a spiritual standpoint, that makes no sense whatsoever.
Hmm.
So, and I explain to people that's not what our creator meant for us. We were supposed to have an easier life where we can live in this energy field of happiness and spiritual ascension taking place in the best conditions. But these guys built a machine that we operate in, we run, and it rapes us of everything: financial, spiritual, emotional. Imagine once we get beyond this, where this new world that's nothing but completely abundant on all levels for everybody, and we spend our time rescuing humanity. Now it's going to be, how can I put in the most amount of time and get the least financial reward? Because it's all going to be giving. There'll be more money than we can imagine available for us in this new oncoming world that they're going to release onto us. But just think about being in a world like that, where you're never looking over your shoulder, whether somebody's going to do wrong by you. in a company you work for, in business, stabbing in the back. It's more about how can I help this person rise? It's like a football coach taking a great player. That's his dream and goal. I want to take this talent, I want to craft it, and I want to see him get to the NFL.
Yeah.
That kind of mindset. If everybody would have that, and guys like you would stay in the corporate world and continue to offer, your talents and abilities to that part of the world.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, it's all about God's work, right? That's corporate world. All that stuff is just irrelevant. And so I'm with you. Our Creator, when He put us on this planet, His intentions were the best for us. And eating from the tree, Adam and Eve, the fall basically put us into this, right? And so there's already been one wipeout, and the flood where He tried to eliminate all of the evil on the planet, and we've now repopulated, and evil has returned in abundance. And it's because this is Satan's domain, man. And so you got these leaders that's who they worship, and people don't realize that. And it's a matter of good and evil. And so we're seeing evil rear its ugly head right now, and it's because this is kind of the great standoff. So it's going to be crazy.
It's a Mexican standoff.
Yep, for sure. So now we were talking last week about some of these flights that to Nellis, and that looks like that operation has, at least from the exercise perspective, it looks like all the stuff on the coast. I was looking at all the naval fleets and everything else out there, and everything has just kind of gone away. There's one boat out there still, but everything else seems to have dissipated. On the East Coast, it looked like there was one or two carriers still out there. But that's this time of year. It's kind of normal, the locations that I'm seeing them. So are you hearing anything from your guys about Nellis? Did any people – I didn't see a bunch of people departing. I saw a handful of aircraft roll out, but I didn't see any aircraft that looked like it was, exercise related. You normally see when you have an exercise and you have a big influx like that, then the next day you expect to see – a lot of exercise activity, right? Like red flags. There's a lot of flying going on, and you see aircraft that will justify, there's an exercise. Just like we saw off the coast of California and San Diego area, we saw there was an exercise, right? We saw a bunch of boats, and we saw them out there playing around. And are you hearing anything out of the Nellis side of the house?
Yeah, my guy out there, he's pretty much on top of what's going on, and what he reported to me yesterday. He's in the shipping industry, so their company alone, he knows what's on these rigs. And he said he was load tracking three tractor trailers that came out of Salt Lake City to Nellis yesterday, and the trailers on these things were loaded up with MREs. So when he said that, I said, you know what? They're not bringing them in to feed the soldiers. They can do that on base. Those are for guys that are going to be out in the field operational.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no doubt. If you're at a forward operating base and they're handing you MREs, man, they're going to be a bunch of those guys are going to be mega torqued,
revolt.
Yeah. Don't feed me that, man. That stuff is tripe, man. I mean, I don't care where you are. There's nothing good. I used to call them SIBs, man, which was shit in a box is pretty much it. They're just absolutely, there's no flavor. It's just, I mean, they may have gotten better now, but I can tell you 30 years ago, they were, oh, mercy. You'd rather just eat a handful of dirt and some bark off a tree, man, and be done with it,
Yeah, I've had those things 30 years ago, and a friend he came back from the Army gave me some of them, and I'm, back in that world of competitive bodybuilding then, I never ate anything for flavor anyway, so I thought, hey, this stuff ain't that bad.
Yeah.
The average guy would be like, this is horrible.
Yeah. But oh no, it locks you up, man. It's bad on the intestines, and it's just not good. Definitely not good. So
well, that's one thing he told me, Monkey, and he reached out to me today. He said that there was a call for emergency transport. 30 or 40 different tractors were headed to St. Louis to pick up, and KC to pick up loads that he doesn't even know what's on them. Mm-hmm. He just found it very odd that all of a sudden that there's a call for 40 tractors to load up and bring whatever they've got to San Diego, Los Angeles, San Francisco. He said there's about 15 of them headed for Salem, Oregon. He said there's 7 headed for Seattle, Washington, and 2 in Spokane. So, and one thing he said, what I don't understand, about that, there's obviously, and he said they're paying double. And now, if this
Wow.
is DOD related, they're paying double for this stuff to be moved right away. And so I asked myself, okay, Mike probably talked to you about this, Mike Adams, and he said that, he had heard that, when they make a move on California, they got about 100,000 cabal players in that state they got to go get. And, they're going to get them all at once. So I don't know. Does this have anything to do with positioning for stuff like that? He said, as far as the vaccine stuff, he said, that stuff has to be, again, this is out of my wheelhouse, but he said, they're not refrigerated trailers that are good, they can keep it 20 below. And I thought that's what he said they had to be for the vaccine kind
80.
of stuff.
I heard
80 below?
80 below is what I heard. Yeah.
Yeah, he said those are not rigs that have that kind of refrigeration. But
No.
yeah, he said that they have to arrive by Saturday or Sunday at the latest in those locations. Now, let's say that being the case, does that put something in Monday in play? Is it still not happening till January? Who knows?
Yeah,
I kind of think that you are leaning in the right direction, maybe that it's going to be in January.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I mean, at the end of the day, POTUS, I mean, it's a Christmas season. I mean, I just don't see, from our standpoint, him going after and locking everybody down at Christmas time. That would not be a good move from a political or from a human standpoint, right? But you get through the new year, I can see that, then it's a non factor, right? So, but yeah, it doesn't make sense for that to be vaccines, but it could be. Could it be masks? Could it be? There's a lot of different elements that you would need. Now when you start talking about taking people down in these houses, or going after folks, people don't really realize just what it takes to, what it entails to do that. It's now they may be using local law enforcement, but I doubt it. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that's probably pretty hush hush until right up at go time, because you'll put lives at risk. But these are the type of thing where you've got to, one, there's a lot of planning involved, but two, you don't just send 2 guys into a house. It's normally a pretty good sized team that goes in to do takedowns, and so, they come in, they breach from various different angles, and some of these folks, I would imagine, have security details. So now you've got that factor that's involved, right? So if you start talking about, anybody that's an elected official probably has some type of a security detail. I would think. So, there's a lot of factors, but that's a lot of manpower to do that. A lot of manpower.
I heard Gene say something today that made sense. He said, look, and we've learned this quite some time ago. Army intelligence is infiltrated everywhere. I mean, they're, anywhere you go in the cities, these people are walking around in plain clothes. They're not telegraphing who they are. They're plain clothes. They're embedded in the community, and you'd figure they'd have to be, because it's kind of like we've heard about the weapons and the uniforms that are stockpiled around the country for, and I don't know if you want to talk about CCP personnel in here and how many we might want to touch on that, but I can tell you that military's intelligence, same thing. They've infiltrated everywhere, and if there needs to be things that happen, I don't see when they're making these acquisition of these targets, these high value targets, that they're rolling in. They're coming in strong. They're just rolling up in normal vehicles with normal clothes on, and just walking right up and saying, okay, you're coming with us, flash a badge, or you had Department of Defense. That to me makes more sense based on him saying that. But yeah, that's probably exactly how they're going to, and they've been doing that for a while now, maybe not in mass or in force here, but around different spots around the world you've seen.
Yeah, I mean, you catch a guy at a hot dog stand and you just basically take him right there. It's not they go quietly, but when you're engaging the spec ops guys, those are like the video at the beginning that I show, where the guys are breaching doors and going in and clearing rooms and taking guys and hooding them, and that's pretty much what you're going to see. So it's that's a serious engagement, and that's usually how you treat people for treason, national security, that kind of stuff. So
Yeah, I think our boys that are running around with their black hoods and their, their soy boys with their sister skinny jeans on, I think those are the guys that are going to see the green coming at them.
Yeah, I agree. I would agree. Eliminate the threat.
Mhm.
And every one of them, every one of them have been pinged. If they have sent any type of message anywhere, that their location is compromised. So they're going to be toast. So, but
No doubt.
yep. So, yeah. So I think you're right. But so what I'm hearing though is going to be after the new year in terms of what's going to go down for the major part of it. So, but yeah, when you start moving that kind of assets on a truck across the country, there sounds to me like they're pre-positioning things with an anticipation of some of the stuff to go down, and it could be anything in those trucks. So it could be bedding, could be blankets, could be, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that could be. So you never know.
Yeah. Yeah, he said because he knows what's being shipped around the country on a consistent basis. That's an anomaly that jumped right at him. Like what he tried to find out what these loads were, but they wouldn't tell him, whoever he talks to.
Yeah.
And these other things he were inside of his own company that were bringing these MREs down from Salt Lake City. But the others, he would try to fish for it, couldn't get anything. One thing that he did say, I wanted to ask you about, because you're watching this movement. He said he's seeing a lot of air movement with 15, 16s, and probably, I'm guessing they're probably Marine Corps 18s, because Air Force isn't flying F-18s, but Navy
Right.
is. But
Yeah.
so I'm just figuring he's seeing a lot of activity. He sees those black 15E models flying around out there. But he said there's a heck of a lot of air traffic. In fact, he just sent me a text just before maybe we came on, and it's like I think he's got his own intelligence operation himself, because he just sent me a picture of some more armored APCs coming in, heavily armored trucks on. I can see, I'm looking at them right now on these flatbeds coming right into the base at Nellis.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if you can actually see that. I don't know if you can see it
Yeah.
with that camera or not, but
Yeah.
that's one that I zeroed in on. But that's they deuce and a half. What are they?
I don't know. That's they look like Humvees with some type of a cover on the back of them.
Yeah,
So
maybe a big cover to have some troops sitting back there. But
yeah.
there's two rigs I see going in with these on. There's two on each flatbed. That's what I can see in the picture. So again, this is stuff that he lives there, near there. He's like, this thing is definitely heating up. There's stuff going on here constantly now. Since you broke that information about the air traffic you saw happening with the 17s and
Yeah.
those.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that for just a second, the air traffic stuff. So here's today. So this is what was blowing up on my Twitter feed, and that's not the one. Hang on. There we go. Hate when I hit the wrong button. It's my trigger finger, man. I got a little
You've
antsy
been,
on that one, and
you've been practicing.
yep. So yeah. So anyway, this was today. So this was the Air Force One decoy, right? And this is the one I was talking about earlier. How if it doesn't say Air Force One, it's not POTUS on there. And so this particular flight, what we're seeing is these guys just basically, it popped up out of DC, did a little round robin, but we're seeing these marshaling points take place, down south of DC. So we're watching several decoys pop in. We've seen some of the Venus aircraft, and then they'll basically head down south. So they'll exfil, in expedited fashion out of the Joint Reserve Base there, and then they'll go south of DC, do a little marshaling pattern, and then they'll land back in again. So it's just kind of an interesting. They seem to be practicing for something, but one of the things, and for people that are kind of new following, I know we get a lot of folks that are just coming in. I want to just kind of go over real quickly some of the prison activity and the things that I'm watching. And so there's a handful of spots around the world that we've been keeping eyes on, and I do believe that these are reason. And I can kind of give you some of the justification behind them. But one is Guantanamo Bay at the Spa. All right, so we know that's a given prison location, but everybody's eyes are on that one, right? And so the XPL Honduras was a location that was called out in the latest National Defense Act, and in that it said, "Hey, I want a study done. I want it completed by the first quarter of 2020." And and that looks like it's going to be an alternate location to Guantanamo Bay. And so I'm seeing traffic that justifies that, and and the increase in traffic. I'm seeing the troops, so it's almost mirroring what we see taking place at Guantanamo Bay, with the exception of the troop rotation, because that is an Air Force base, and it seems to me like the folks that are monitoring that are more Air Force centric than Guantanamo Bay being Navy centric, right? And so, um, but the other piece too is that there's an island location that is out in the Azores, and it's called Terceira Island. And that location, I'm seeing a lot of aircraft coming from Europe. So they're coming from Greece, Netherlands, Spain. I saw a recent flight that came out of Paris that went to that location. Now there's a prison on that island location that is it's a high security prison. Looks very modern, very very state of the art. Right in the middle of the island on the south side of it. So the island's only about 25 miles across. At about the 12-mile mark, if you go just to the south side of that island, you can actually see that prison from the Google Maps. I mean, it's pretty spectacular. It almost looks like a pentagon shape, so it's kind of an interesting. And so that traffic that we're seeing go there, and we're also seeing a lot of the traffic go up to Iceland, right? And so, and these birds and the aircraft that we're watching are the same ones that were around a week after the election that were flurrying to all the black sites. And these are also the same aircraft that we've seen pop into Guantanamo Bay. And so now they basically, and this is what I think is transitioned, which is interesting, is that we saw the flurry that seemed to be very domestic centric in terms of the activity, right? So it was all these aircraft were flying around going to black sites, but they were all staying CONUS, with the exception of these little Caribbean islands and going down to the spa. But then all of a sudden we got to around December 3rd, and there was about a 24-hour pause, and then those aircraft started going OCONUS. So they all started jetting out across the Pacific the Atlantic, headed to all these other island locations in Iceland and Greece and Russia. We saw one airplane come in from Moscow to Iceland down to Washington, D.C. That was last week. So it seems like, and now what I'm watching is that has kind of plateaued a little bit. So it's not as active and busy as it was. So I seriously think, like you're seeing with this observation of the things going on in Nellis, the prepositioning of assets, that we're everything is getting into place, and we're going to get through this holiday, and then we're probably going to go on a very short lockdown, and everything's going to start getting cheeky, right?
Yeah, I mean, people keep worrying about, we're running out of time, and my guy Ken sent me information just before I went on earlier, and he said that Ratcliffe, DNI Ratcliffe director, he said his report's delayed now till January, right? So we've got this quote unquote deadline of January the 6th, right?
Right.
So start asking, so what does all that mean? And I don't know if I have the right answer, but I always keep having to defer back. First of all, the intelligence agencies are doing everything they can to survive and fight back, because again, for them, they know the same thing. It's not win or lose for them. It's win or die. Yeah. And the intelligence agencies are our biggest problem, not just in the country, but in the world. So are they going to come forward with what they need for DNI to put this into what kind of a track? Is it going to put into a track of the judicial system again? Do we have to follow the dates? Absolutely not. This is wartime scenario. We are under attack by foreign powers, and POTUS has the executive order authority to do what needs to be done to mitigate, this type of incursion. So, it makes sense that, again, if this is going to be delayed till January, I don't believe it's a surprise to Ratcliffe. I think Johnny Ratcliffe's a tough dude. He's the guy that belongs in there. I think this is more of a continuation of a roller coaster ride for the people to watch, to be a part of, to engage in, to emotionally get to a fever pitch So the rest of the world, those who aren't paying attention, start turning their heads. That aren't watching, turn their heads like, "Hey, what's going on over there?" Just to keep ramping this energy up to get all eyes on. So when they're ready to go for the decapitation move, people now know why they're doing it. Like, holy Mary, Mother of God, I had no idea the corruption was this deep. So now they're all watching. We got 75% we need for them to go for a complete takedown.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, I think that watching that air traffic is as telling as anything, in my opinion.
Yeah, certainly a good indicator. And that flux that we saw has kind of waned now. It's not really. It's down. It's still a little bit higher than normal, maybe around 300 or so, but it was nowhere near what it was. It's interesting that we saw that happen. We saw the D5 date happen. December 5th was when the big Nellis event took place. My sources that the same source that's telling me that right after the new year is going to be the go date, and that's going to be the 1 to 2 week period lockdown that we need to basically all stay out of the way is what they were telling us. So, but he's also the same guy that was telling me that that Nellis event was all preposition of assets, special ops guys, right? And so your guys were getting kind of the same independently similar intel. So there's got to be something to it.
Whatever it is, if that's when it starts, it's going to be one hell of a new year to ring in, isn't it?
Yeah, 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 without a doubt, man. Unprecedented. I think this is about to. The thing that gets me. Have you really been just as you step back and just observe? Because I haven't really been plugged into all of the MSM and everything else going on, right? I don't anyway, but I'm certainly disconnected from it right now. But it just seems really quiet. Like I don't hear anything out of Harris. I don't hear anything out of Biden. I don't hear anything out of Trump. Like they are all like you could hear a pin drop. I'm not seeing any kind of chatter. There's no rhetoric going on between them that's like over the top. It just doesn't it seem odd to you?
Yeah, look at it from a very broad lens. If you look at here's the telltale sign to me. Like you, I don't watch mainstream media news. I don't even have cable. I have nothing. I got Netflix. I've got the Amazon, things like that. So I don't even scan through hardly ever the Gateway Pundit right now or Breitbart or Newsmax. Oh. You know what I do? I've learned to let the people who are engaged, you call them the Anons, call them just us, the Patriot Street Fighters, whoever's out there, they're digging up everything they can, and what seems to be a relevant point, it gets repeated, retweeted many times, and those things catch my attention.
Yeah.
Here's also for the news. Here's what catches my attention. Do you know how Hollywood, how they mouth off, how the actors, actresses just constantly mouthing off in your face, gloating, because they think, where are they? Where are all these tweets? Where is this onslaught of Hollywood, hammering Trump because he won't concede? Where are they? Where's Jon Stewart? Where's Kimmel? I'm not seeing any of this stuff, like none of it. Like all of a sudden, where'd these people go? Like what happened here? So, you know that if they feel Trump is trying to steal the election, they're gonna be on a terror, right?
Yeah.
Tweet city. And I've said this before. Again, we're gonna find out if it's true or not. I believe that they've had all the chess pieces on the board, pre-planned out, and it's moving around, play by play to raise the the energy frequency for us, and come to attention, and just the movie. I just keep seeing this is because there's too many things that don't make sense in the real world as we know it. That kind of chaos not being around. So I'm thinking maybe those guys are parked on ice or something.
Yeah.
It's
maybe
it's a mystery, but all I know is I go to sleep every night at peace. I wake up at peace. Yeah. I know in my mind we're at the dawn of a new era, and they're going to stomp every cockroach into the ground, and I just want to be there to watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I definitely don't feel like there's a independent threat. Now there may be a cyber threat, as we're seeing. There's a lot of talk about the cyber stuff going on, but I don't feel like there's going to be some type of an foreign invasion from our coastlines, and I don't see anything like that. I don't see any indication of that. There was a lot of chatter about that stuff, but I don't see anything that will, and that's one of the things I pray for is discernment. Is just being able to have the ability to step back, not overreact, see what, take in the data points. What's the data telling me, right? And that's just in my nature, right? It's when I was in the corporate world, I was a Lean Six Sigma black belt, right? And so there's this thing called Ono Circle, and that's where you stand in the middle and you just observe everything around you, and that's how you make your decisions. You watch everything in operation and flow, and figure out where all your problems are, right? And so it's the same thing, same approach. I look at the data points that are coming in. And what's funny is I'll hear some of this stuff. And we were just talking about how the other day, it seemed like there was just this influx of bad intel that came in, right? There's, people were kind of going into panic, and it just took our eyes off of everything. And so, but somehow my name ended up, because of the air traffic stuff, got pulled into all of that. And now all of a sudden people are like thinking I'm part of this whole CCP bunker thing going on in Maine, and F-16s being shot down. And I'm like, I don't see any of that. And I don't believe any of that. I do know. I mean, F-16s go down, and it could have been some foul play maybe, but did it have a nuke on it? Certainly not. The White House isn't reacting. We don't have any DEFCON levels. We don't have military, that is on high alert. It's just that there's not a lot of indicators here domestically that would indicate that we're under some type of a foreign attack, other than the cyber stuff.
Let's talk about that, because when I told you your name came up when Gene Cosense was talking about this.
Yeah.
So again, not knowing exactly, what the reality is, what he said, and like I said, if it comes to deep underground military bases, he's the guy that's been getting all this intel. He said that the main operation actually did take place. He said that there were what we heard was there were 50,000 CCP troops had, whether moved across the border, were there in that dome. Now these domes are these domes aren't like 100 feet underground. They're thousands of yards underground.
Yeah.
And he said that they're using I thought he mentioned, maybe don't quote me on this, but I thought he said that's what Space Force is. They've got space-based weapons that can destroy these kind of things. Now he said that that's what happened, that they took out 50,000 CCP troops. Now I would say, well, since we didn't hear anything about it, then I would say, well, in this type of whatever we want to call it, modern day kinetic warfare, that is a very highly compartmentalized operation, would we know through the normal conventional channels? Would we see? Nothing here is normal. We do know that there's a ton of Chinese troops in Canada. We do know they've been training there for cold weather. So then I have to say to myself, well, then it's plausible. How do you, as our military back channel says infiltration versus not invasion. So now you look at that list of CCP players that are embedded around the world. China doesn't come out of the ground, folks. 30 years ago, they were barely plowing for enough food for the nation. You're going to tell me that this third world nation in 30 years blows up out of the ground, has the technology that rivals the U.S., becomes a superpower, building overnight, that every minute a skyscraper is going. That doesn't happen, even in the evolution of the industrial power, this era. That was facilitated by the United States, the cabal powers. Mm-hmm. So, and they know they can't wash up on our shores. They can't invade us, but can they plant hundreds of thousands of students here that are CCP Army trained? Of course, we already know that. DHS, FBI have arrested these people over time. That doesn't always make the media. Sometimes it leaks out. But I say you got to keep your eyes open. I mean, I went to Penn State University, and my family will tell you there's a massive amount of Chinese in that university. Yeah. And how do you know that ton of, again, and this isn't us to start becoming, looking at ethnic origin of people with a raised eyebrow, but I will say this, most won't. You better keep your eyes open,
Yeah.
because none of us want to be caught with our pants around our ankles. And what I just proposed as a distinct possibility, if you're going to try to take down a country like us, you're going to do it in such a subtle way. You're going to sneak up. And I think
Yeah.
that's, we absolutely have to contemplate, keep in the back of our minds and keep an eye raised. It's like, Sun Tzu says that every war is won before it's fought. How? Information, communication, knowing your, know your enemy and know yourself.
Yeah.
If your enemy operates this way, then you darn well better contemplate that could be where we are today. But
Yeah.
again, I'm like you. I don't say I vacillate. I put it out there, and here's what I think.
Yeah.
In terms of looking for the unobvious, and then listening. And then I sit back and I listen. People hit the boards, or they'll hit, different channels, and I'm listening to what they're saying to try to get different perspectives to see, hey, where do we all land on this thing?
Yeah.
So I don't trust it.
I'm with you. I mean, the stealth jihad model, right? That thing has been into play forever. And if you go look at England, for example, what happened to their country? The English, the true British English are a minority in their own country now. I think about 10 years ago, they became less than 50%, and that all these people that are moving in from the Middle East have been taking over. They've now got, communities set up in parts of England. They've got a Muslim mayor. There's a lot of different aspects of that. And so that stealth jihad model is where they come in, they establish, a domestic location, and then they start getting numbers in, and then they get into power on city councils, and then they slowly, just like you see, going on up in was it Michigan or Minnesota, right? And so, that's the same kind of model. You get enough people into play, you get enough people that can vote, and so then you start standing up city councils, you start making decisions for your cities, and then you've got mayors, and then you're running police forces, and before you know it, you've taken over. And they're doing that little by little. And so, we definitely have to be eyes on that. So, hey, one of the things I did want to share was there is this has been around, and I think this is about to be relevant. And this is why I want to bring it up. And I want to point out a couple things on it. And this is a previous Q post, right? And it has to do with POTUS being well insulated and protected on Air Force One and abroad, specific location classified, while these operations are conducted due to the nature of entrenchment. And so if you notice, this talks really mainly about Washington, D.C., but the very last paragraph right here says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his own one and only Son, that whoever believed in him shall not perish but have everlasting life." That's John 3:16, okay? Now, the next piece is not John 3:16. That next piece right there, it says, "Love is patient, love is kind." That is 1 Corinthians 13. And so this right here, this 4:10:20 is Donald J. Trump. That's DJT. So 4 is D, 10 is J, 20 is T. And so when you look at love is patient, love is kind, at the end of this, that is 1 Corinthians 13. And that's why I think this date that we're hearing right after the first of the year, the 113, I think is a date we need to all be watching. I think that's when all this stuff's going to shake loose. And I think they told us through that scripture right there. When I saw that, I was like, man, it makes no sense. Why do you just stick, changing God's word? You throw something at the back end of John 3:16, and we've seen his White House secretary, press secretary, talk about, my clock's set for 3:16. We've seen other QComs that talk about John 3:16 being, this is going to be biblical. And so I think that whole term, when we're talking about biblical, is going to tie to this date. I think this is, and it also aligns with what we're hearing. So,
I like it. And ladies and gentlemen, you just got yourself a monkey decode.
And I'm not even a code monkey.
He's not even a code monkey. Yeah, he's not Code Monkey Z, but I'm telling you, he's got competition now. That's how they communicate, folks. If you haven't, been part of this back channel observation of this intel. That's how it works. And when you can put those pieces together, takes a knowledgeable person to do it. But
Yeah.
that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, it does. And I'm really interested to see. I think we're going to get to the new year, and I think it's going to be guns a blazing, man. So I'm pumped. And if I'm called upon, I'm ready to serve. So I just I just want to see some action. I want to see something get done, right, wrong, or indifferent. Whichever direction it takes us, I don't care. I'm just tired of sitting on the sideline and watching nothing happen.
Yeah, man, that's where we are, man. When it starts, boys, it's going to be pretty amazing. And all we need to do is sit and watch and guard the castle at home. And
Yeah.
and if they come, boys, those of you knuckleheads out there, you clowns that are itching for it, all I can do is pray for you.
Yeah.
Pray for you to make that move, to talk yourself out of it, because it ain't going to be pretty. It's going to be something I don't even want to see myself, and I don't like you people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, all right, good, man. We got about 2 minutes left. So, you got any overs or unders or anything we need to cover?
That's about all I had for tonight. I think we're all in a good place. Like I said, I think the thing that's most important, I talked about this earlier before I jumped off my live stream. The most important thing we can do right now is remember every moment of the day, or as many as you can. Get up in the morning, pray. At nighttime, throughout the day, every time you're going to have a meal, pray. Or if you meditate, we have special operators. We have men and women on the battlefield all over the world right now, everywhere around the world. And some of these people, folks, are not going home. They're not coming back to their wives. They're not coming back to their children. They're not coming back to their husbands. And every day that they're out there in the battlefield, what they're thinking about, what's in their mind is you. They're thinking about the freedom of the country. They're thinking about humanity, because they're going into a paralyzing, terrifying situation. And I'll tell you, we're not all heroes. We are scared to death going into these things. And I'm telling you, they have to ask themselves, why am I doing this? And they're coming right back to you, to us, because they know that the future of the world and humanity rests on their mission. And that's what they're giving up. And we can't forget that. I mean, it's easy to sit here and have conversations like we do. And but we can never for 1 second forget, we have battlefield warriors out there on many levels of the spectrum that are truly, truly giving up everything. Some ultimately to make sure that we can enjoy this new age, and we can never for a second forget that. And so I ask you personally to pray multiple times a day, because that frequency, that resonant energy that rises with good thoughts, looking at the people that are beside you, noticing people on the street, not just stepping over them like they don't count anymore, like have some empathetic feelings, like we've got to end this. We can't let this go on to humanity. All this raises the God consciousness, and that's what the planet needs, because that energy mitigates a lot of the satanic low frequency stuff that's coming at everybody on the planet now. So for this Christmas season, I'd like to see us, think extra special about who we are as a species, and what what's coming. We should certainly have to earn it ourselves, and I think that's how we do it.
Yeah. Well said. If not me, who? If not now, when? Right. So.
Absolutely.
Yep. All right, folks. Well, that's it, man. Good stuff, brother. I appreciate you coming on here, and I'm looking forward to each week. This is going to be really good, and we'll have Hotel 3 back with us here shortly. I'll send us. Oh, go ahead.
Where is he? I want to dox his location tonight.
I don't know where he is. I just know that his wife summoned him for a Christmas party, so he's buried in that. So, yep, all good, man. All right, guys. Well, good deal. All right. Well, listen, you guys be safe, stay frosty. God bless, and monkey out.